Hello everyone, welcome to the first live on YouTube from Invisible Jiu Jitsu. Yeah, Minnesota. So this is my studio upstairs in my house. Got the camera. Let me know who's watching too. Let me know where you're from. So I've got some questions on my phone. Feel free, any questions you've got about Jiu Jitsu, leave them in the comment box down below. We're trickling in, 8 people watching. Ooh, that's good. 10 double figures, yes. I've got a studio light now. We've gone full production value today. So obviously, while we wait for people to drop in, yo Shiro, how's it going? Can you hear me? Can we hear it? Is the volume okay? We struggled. We did one on Facebook on Thursday. You can find that on the Invisible Jiu-Jitsu Academy Facebook page, and we struggled at the beginning, but YouTube, I can actually monitor the audio. Yeah. Okay, so we're good. All right, so UK continues on lockdown. I can't leave the house for 2 weeks because I've come into contact with a confirmed coronavirus carrier. So I have to stay home. So I'm not really doing a lot. Yesterday I hit the punch bag. No jiu-jitsu. We're just doing punching stuff now. It's an Invisible Muay Thai channel now. Sound and pictures are good. Yo, Wukash, Matthew, John Hand, hey man. Yes, self-isolation, Wukash, unfortunately. I had to get groceries delivered to my house by my family. So stuck in the house, stuck in the garden at the moment. Picture qualities are really good. Thank you, Charlotte. That's the Panasonic GH5. Yeah, slightly better than my laptop webcam anyway. Yo, hey, love from Birmingham. Just Jay. It could be technique, could be mindset, anything. Or if you just want to ask me what my favorite Bruce Lee film is, we're starting. Charlotte's beat me up. Yeah. Let's start with Jamie. Jamie asked me a question on Facebook, so let's bring this up. Hopefully he's watching. What do you personally do to keep your mind sharp for jiu-jitsu through lockdown? Nothing. I haven't really been doing any jiu-jitsu sharpening of the mind. I've been playing the guitar a lot. And just generally doing stuff around the house that needed doing. So you have to understand, though, that when you're a black belt, taking a month off or 2 months off, you're not really going to lose anything, and in terms of sharpness, that you could keep. All right, it's really difficult to stay sharp without being on the mat, and without lying to you guys, it's tough. It's really tough. Am I sitting down and analyzing some stuff? No, I've had a couple of weeks off. I probably will if this continues much longer. I'll probably start analyzing some footage. I've also got some plans to do some live streams like this, where I can stream my desktop and we'll watch some fights together, whether that's jiu-jitsu, MMA, whatever you guys want to see. I'll give you my thoughts on what's going on, some little rolling breakdowns, because I always get asked for them and they're super popular. So yeah, maybe something like that. But if you're a beginner in terms of staying sharp, practice what you can at home. The thing with jiu-jitsu is if you're going to get to a black belt, you're going to have been training a number of years, and you're probably going to hurt yourself at some point. You're probably going to get sick. You're probably going to have to take a certain amount of time away from the gym. And getting to black belt is as much being good at jiu-jitsu as it is managing your jiu-jitsu training and how you deal with adversity and setbacks and things like that. Like, you know, if the first time you get a really bad knee injury, you say to yourself, I'm done. Well, of course, you're not going to get a black belt then. You're not going to get there. You know, I've had 3 serious knee injuries on my way to black belt. Touch wood, I've done a lot to counter that. And 2 of them were from rolling calf slices while someone was playing guard on me. So I rolled underneath and I didn't triangle my legs to protect myself. And I'm super inflexible in the hips. So my foot came kind of close to my face and my LCL decided we're not having any of that. 2 times it was in Brazil too. So I go out to Brazil looking for loads of really good training and then have to spend 6 weeks with a swollen knee, swollen, incredibly painful knee. So, yeah. And then he also said, what is the difference between a choke and a strangle? The difference between a choke and a strangle is purely semantic in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu circles, really. The technical difference is a choke is affecting blood supply. No, choke is affecting air. Strangle is affecting blood supply. So technically, the mata-leão, the rear naked choke, is actually a rear naked strangle if you do it correctly. Problem is most chokes or neck attacks tend to be a little bit of a mixture of the 2. I'm not sure it's particularly productive to separate them, except in application of what you're looking for. Okay, if you know what you're looking for, is this mainly going to be an air choke or is it going to be a blood choke? I tend to call them all chokes. I don't think I've ever referred to one as a strangle. I just name them air and blood chokes, you know, if I really want to get across what it is that I'm cutting off. Oh, so any weights? I don't have any weights at home, really. I've got the crappy little dumbbells that have screw lock spindles on them, not collars, not Olympic style. So I've kind of been throwing those around. I've done some pull-ups in my garage from the beams. But I also have some natural stones in my garden, fortunately. And I'm going to start lugging around some natural stones. I've got some paving slabs and I've got a really heavy Fairtex punch bag that's probably weighs about as much as I do. So I'm going to throw that around the back garden. The good thing is I'm on the keto diet right now and weight loss is going quite well. And I don't feel, I've been quite fortunate. Like a lot of people are complaining they've been eating a lot in quarantine. I haven't really been eating much more, but I've been eating really good stuff. No carbs. I'm also celiac, so carbs for me are the enemy. Lions Den, what's up, Grant? How's it going, bro? Johnny Brotherhood, all peps, chokes are cranks. Yeah, if it's a crank, if it's a choke, you tapped. Who cares? I really like neck cranks. So those of you who don't know, I have a background in luta livre as well. So luta livre coming from catch wrestling. For me, Simon Hayes, a good friend of mine, black belt from Carlson Gracie, London, he describes hidden lineages. the people that you've trained with outside of your regular grading lineage that all contribute to your game in jiu-jitsu and things. So I've been really fortunate. I've had some great instructors over the years and picked up a lot of stuff, and and master YouTube and instructionals and things have been quite good. So I'll take whatever works. And if they tap to a crank, if they die, they die. Who's the scariest person you've ever met in your jiu-jitsu travels? The scariest person I've ever met on the mats is Toquinho, for fairly obvious reasons. I trained with Toquinho back in 2009, 10, 11, something like that as well. And he's the only person during rolling, when I've tried triangling them, he's ever picked me up over his head. And Toquinho was only like 5'4", fortunately, so I wasn't super high off the ground. But back then, I think I weighed about 85 kilos or something, and I've never been lifted over someone's head so fast and saw my life flash before my eyes. Fortunately, I was a beginner back then, and Toquinho looked after me during training and didn't kick the crap out of me. So he put me back down very gently and then proceeded to tap me with something like an arm bar or something, just threw the triangle away. But he could have killed me that day. In terms of scariest people, like scary off the mat, scary, I'm not sure. I've trained with quite a lot of the guys from Boppy. So if you watch my videos, you might see the school logo of the police, the special police in Rio, the special operations police. And a lot of those guys do jiu-jitsu and do luta livre, and I've had the very awesome pleasure of training with those guys and going up to the Boppy headquarters and things and having a look around. And those guys are legitimately scary. They do not play around. Their job is to potentially kill people, to kill drug dealers, etc. So yeah, those guys are very, very scary. Ian Freeman, absolutely lovely guy. I've always got on really well with Ian Freeman back in the MMA days, but he's a scary guy. He's a scary dude. Fought in the UFC, so some of you will have seen him smash up Frank Mir, which was really awesome for British Jiu-Jitsu back when Frank was the poster boy. But yeah, Ian's seriously intense dude. But yeah, I've always gotten really well with Ian. So what's up if you're watching this? What tunes am I learning on the guitar? I have been currently learning Mouth for War by Pantera. I used to play a lot of guitar when I was younger, so sort of 15 to about 19, I played intensely. Everything I tend to do hardcore, so if I'm going to learn something, if I'm going to learn jiu-jitsu, I'm going to train twice a day, every day. And when I was playing the guitar, I think I was playing sort of 4, 5, 6 hours a day sometimes. And I got reasonably good. But then when I went to university, I kind of dropped it. I was too busy. I did a chemistry degree. It was one of those degrees where you actually had to show up and do some stuff. And there was no reading time at home. So I kind of fell off. But just recently, I've bought a couple new guitars, which has encouraged me to get back playing a little bit more. And this is the perfect time when I'm sat around the house, unable to leave. So Mouth for War by Pantera at the moment. And I've just been trying to remember some of the stuff that I used to play. Like I quite like metal. So Metallica and Slayer and things like that, and Rage Against the Machine. And I've just bought a 7-string guitar, so I've been playing some Fear Factory and Korn and things like that. So if you know any of those guys, you'll understand. So I think it's important to have a little something to do to occupy your mind during these situations, like during the lockdown. It's very easy to go a bit crazy. I think I'm quite lucky. I'm quite an introverted, stay-at-home type person anyway. So barring going out in the afternoons and it's an evening kind of thing. So yeah, not too bad. Thank you. What do we got? Kettlebells, etc. If someone wants to give me a kettlebell, I will more than happily do some kettlebell stuff. However, you can't buy kettlebells anymore, or indeed any fitness equipment. And if you can find a kettlebell, people are price gouging to insane levels, like hundreds and hundreds of pounds for 24 kilo kettlebells, which, you know, is crazy. But I guess if people will buy it, then yeah, fair enough. But no, I'll stick to the free rocks that are in my garden. Do you have any themes that you would like to do as soon as you are able to get back on the mats? Themes like technique themes, things that I would like to work or think for myself, or things that I would like to teach, John. A little bit different. So yeah, let me know. What kind of themes do you mean? Things to teach or things to improve upon myself? We'll come back to that. Just Jay, what's your thoughts on syllabus for belts? I'm blue 4 stripes and good at what I know. Saw Roy Dean's purple belt gradings and don't know a fair few of his techniques. Man, I'm not super keen on syllabuses. I'll be 100% honest. Well, I say that, but I kind of have a set program that runs for my fundamentals class, but it's not belt based. So I don't have a blue belt syllabus and a purple belt syllabus. I just have a beginner's syllabus. So if you come to a beginner's class, you're going to see things like a week's worth of one technique, and you're going to see something like a takedown, a guard pass, an escape, a submission, and it's going to rotate through over a period of time. So you're going to, no matter where you start my classes in a year, you're going to come into something that's useful rather than, all right, today we're doing flying omoplata and new guy, get on with it. So yeah, syllabus for belts, it's really difficult to say what's useful, especially when you start getting into purple belt. So I kind of got to talk a little bit about what I see the belts as. For me, blue belt is you have a few things from every position. So what that means to me is that you have a few guard passes, you have a few escapes from side control, you have a few escapes from mount, you have a few submissions from guard, from open guard. There's no big holes, all right? So you should be comfortable or reasonably comfortable against another blue belt in any position and against a white belt in any position. Obviously, size, etc., not taking into account massive disparities. But there should be no position where you're like, I literally have no clue what I should do from here. Now, that doesn't mean that you know everything, because that's ridiculous. You know how many techniques there are in jiu-jitsu? It's crazy. I don't know everything. I've been training for 15 plus years. So, of course, there's going to be stuff on purple belt syllabuses that probably you haven't seen. Do you need to know it? No. I mean, if you look at some purple belts, they'll be very strong, not physically, but strong technically in all positions, but only to a certain level. But what they do, they're very good at. Are they any less of a purple belt than a purple belt who knows all of the techniques, but can only apply the same amount of them to a decent degree? So I wouldn't worry about it. For me, like, purple belt is the accumulation belt. In my mind, I think purple belt, you should really be going out and learning everything that you can, and trying to then fit that within a game so that you can apply it. It's not yet the time to close yourself off. I think once you get into purple and once you get into brown, you should probably know most of the techniques. Let's say you know 80% of the jiu-jitsu techniques that are out there, at least kind of gist of what they're about and how to apply them. Brown belt, I feel, is the consolidation belt, where you really start to develop a game and you really start to look deep into certain techniques, and you'll cut away what's not going to work for you, and then really focus and work on what is going to work for you. You know, my game at blue was completely different to what I did at purple. And then at brown, it took a whole new level. Like, I was a guard player very much because I was lazy as hell. So I'd lie down on my back and tap people with my long legs, you know, triangles and stuff. But then when you get into purple, I started to learn the top game. And really, it was brown belt where my passing got really good. And I feel like now, I mean, really good for me, not really good in the general scheme of things. But I feel like it was brown belt where I got good or better at passing, and my game flipped. So I became a pasador instead of a guadero. So don't get too hung up on syllabuses. Don't get too hung up on Roy Dean and the flashy expos, exhibitions and things that they do. I want to see you apply it for real in sparring. I don't care what you can demonstrate. Jiu-Jitsu doesn't care what you can demonstrate. It cares what you can do against someone trying to stop you. So whether that's in hard sparring or in competition, demonstration stuff's just kata. And I did enough of that in Wado-Ryu karate when I was a kid. I don't need any more. Oh, so John's come back to me with things I would like to teach. I haven't even thought about it because mentally, I don't know how long this thing is going to last. So I'm not yet in that planning stage for coming back. You know, if this is going to last all of April, cool. At the end of April, I'll start formulating some things because there's very little I can do about it here. You know, it's a bit like if I was running a restaurant and I wanted to introduce a new dish, I'd be practicing that at home. I have a kitchen at home. I don't have a jiu-jitsu kitchen, so it's very limited what I can do here. I've got a few ideas for things that I want to do for instructional DVDs. A while back, I got asked to make an instructional DVD by someone you definitely will have heard of. And that kind of drifted off. I didn't chase that up. Maybe I'll come back to that and maybe I'll do something. But at the moment, flying to America is definitely off the cards. So we'll see. How long did it take me to learn Portuguese? So the first time I went to Brazil in 2009, I spoke absolutely no Portuguese, except oi, I think, which is hi. And after the first time I went, I stayed for 6 months. And I used to do like 6 months in Brazil, come home, and then go back, 6 months, and come home, and then go back. And after the first 6 months, I still remember vividly to this day, driving back in a taxi to the airport to fly home after my first 6 months and being able to have a conversation with the taxi driver. So conversationally, 6 months, but I've always kind of picked up languages quite well. However, a few things to note. One, I would not consider myself fluent. So don't get me wrong. I can have conversations with people without having to resort to English. But I consider my Portuguese to be not great. I probably sound very, very stupid in a foreign language, but I can make myself understood and I can be understood and I can speak. But in terms of time that it takes to learn things like this, then are you willing to learn? You know, I remember when I first went out, there was a guy there who I won't name. He was an American dude, and he was just like, nah, these guys all in BTT where we were, they speak English. It's fine. Don't need to learn anything. And he didn't learn anything, and he was there I think at least 6 months, because he was there for a few months already before I arrived, and he'd never bothered. Whereas I actually wanted to learn, I wanted to fit in, and I had a good opportunity at BTT. I trained a lot with Milton Vieira, who is now my luta livre coach, and Rafael Makuku, who is teaching in Abu Dhabi or Dubai, somewhere now, one of the Emirate countries. And they both spoke decent English, and they would help me. I'd be like, hey, how do I say grey belt? Oh, Faisha Sinza. Like, oh, okay, cool. So I had an opportunity and I had a willingness. So I got okay at it. And I was writing it a lot. In fact, now I don't speak Portuguese very much, obviously, because there's not many people around in Burton-on-Trent, where I live, that speak Portuguese. But I type it every now and then on Facebook when I converse with people. So my written Portuguese is probably a lot better than my spoken rusty Portuguese at the moment. All right. Okay, we're getting some comments. Let's scroll back up. I've always wondered why you wear the pink gi. Because people hated it. I always like, I just got this thing in me that likes to be different. Look at me, you know. So yeah, Jean LaBelle wearing that pink gi. And I think if you're wearing a pink gi, you got to be a bit mentally tough, because people are going to hate it. I get the, oh man, I can't even say on YouTube. But in Brazil, I get a lot of comments. But who cares? And if you're not prepared to take it, then don't wear the pink gi. But the very first one I did, I just died. It was a white gi, and I think it had loads of blood stains on it that wouldn't go away. So I was like, I'm going to dye it a color. And I just remember going to the store and there being a Flamengo, that's the football team in Rio, Flamingo pink sachet of dye. I'm thinking, yeah, why not flamingo pink? I like bright colors. So I've got one that's flamingo pink. I've got a shoyu roll, a batch 6 shoyu roll that I dyed bright purple until the pants ripped. So that's no longer in service anymore. I've got some more gis than I know what to do with. So I gave a lot away, and I sold a few when I was trying to get back out to Brazil one year. So yeah, pink, just because I like it. I haven't worn it much lately. I'm actually kind of wearing a lot out of the modern flow Akatsuki gi, because I like the anime Naruto, which it's come from. So that's my main gi at the moment, and my Slayer gi from Tatami, because Slayer. Sterling Tuition, what solo drills would you recommend during isolation? Well, there's loads going around. Danaher put out a whole thing on solo drills. I'm not super big on solo drills, but that depends on the kind of person you are and where you're at in your jiu-jitsu sort of journey. Let's call it a journey. Where your jiu-jitsu lifestyle. I hate those terms. So it depends. I mean, I'm a black belt. I've been training for a long time. I could do no jiu-jitsu for 6 months and still perform a technical stand-up. However, I find performing a technical stand-up quite boring. Whereas I actually quite like Ginástica Natural. So if you go on Google and search for Ginástica Natural, Alvaro Romano, I think Romano. He was a Hickson black belt, and it's kind of like animal movement, flow yoga, jiu-jitsu moves, all kind of baked together. But it's a little bit more interesting, and it's got a flow to it, which is kind of cool. And you can create your own techniques, and you can make yourself look a fool by doing it all around your carpet in the living room. But in terms of solo stuff, stand-ups, breakfalls, shrimps, the kind of stuff that you do in your warm-ups. If you are a beginner, yeah, cool. Those are good things for you to do. sharpen it. But remember, no one's watching you do it. So garbage in, garbage out. You know, you are what you practice. Perfect practice makes permanent. So if you're doing the right thing and you're doing it over and over again, well, that's cool. But if you're doing the wrong thing over and over again and you're just reinforcing it, not so cool. If you're worried that you're doing the wrong thing, if you're my student, send me a video. I'll take a look and I'll tell you if you suck or not. But I bet your instructors would do the same. You know, loads of instructors have offered various things. So I've said to my students that I'll create training packages for them if they want, things for them to work, techniques to point them towards. Obviously, if you've got a partner at home, even better. You know, if you've got someone to train with. Unfortunately, I don't have any 100-kilo black belts living with me. I don't think. I mean, I haven't checked all these doors. I mean, there could be someone in there. I don't know. So yeah, solo drills. If that's your thing, cool. Work it. Check the John Danaher one out. That was free. I think Stefan Kesting did one. Stefan always puts out great stuff. Did Bernardo Faria do one? Maybe. I forget. There's been so much stuff now that's been put out for free by, you know, all these awesome guys. Check it out. Take advantage. As I said on my previous live stream on Facebook, I've got hard drives back here with like 10 terabytes worth of instructionals covering various martial arts. And I've probably watched 10-20% of it. And I've probably trained 10-20% of that 20% that I've watched. So pick something, work it. Don't go too much, too crazy, and don't do anything. You know, do one thing really well. That's what I tend to do. Got to scroll back up. I'm getting comments. Yeah, don't worry about sandbagging. Yeah, don't worry about sandbagging. Just do your thing. Do your thing. Purple belt. Purple belt means so much, and this is why a standardized belt system like they have in karate and stuff where you show moves is never going to work. There's a million moves in jiu-jitsu, and forcing you to do something that's not for you is counterproductive. Nice t-shirt, bro. Thanks, Gus. So this is a band of my students called Cave Killer. So please go on YouTube if you like hardcore metal. Forgive me because I don't want to pigeonhole you in a genre. It's heavy. If you like heavy music, I just call everything metal. Check out Cave Killer. They're a UK band, and they've got some EPs out, and they're very good. Also, their merchandise is really nice, and they have the kind of logo that you can't read. How would you monitor your own progress in jiu-jitsu for those people who rarely hit submissions? So monitoring your progress in jiu-jitsu is really quite difficult for beginners, and is one of the main reasons that people drop out, because they see no progress. So what happens is, let's say 5 people start all at the same time, and they're all similar weights and and athleticisms. Then maybe they tap each other, or maybe you're on the bottom of the pile. Maybe you're the tiniest person, and all the time you're getting tapped. Well, you start getting better, but you still get tapped all the time. Why? Well, because those other 4 people that started at the same time as you, well, you're getting better, but so are they. And what happens is everyone's getting better at similar rates. If they're training similar amounts, then it's quite difficult to judge your progress, because the goalposts are shifting with you. Okay, there's no static frame of reference. Really, for me, the static frame of reference is, how do these people who've been training 6 months, a year, 2 years, how do they do against the day one guys with no knowledge. That's the frame of reference, because roughly the day one guys, provided they haven't got any background training in something else like judo or wrestling or whatever, something directly applicable, then they probably suck, and they're of a similar level. So if you're doing better against those brand new day one guys, well, you've probably improved. It's also quite good to give yourself micro challenges or micro goals, day-to-day stuff, like today I'm going to try this armbar setup, today I'm only going to try arm bars, or I'm only going to do chokes, I'm going to try and work my way to the back. And you'll see that, over the course of a week or whatever, if you try this, that person whose back you could never take, oh, well, now I made them expose at the back and I got one hook. So that's progress. And then next time it was 2 hooks, but you lost it because you didn't have a seatbelt. And then maybe next time was 2 hooks and the seatbelt, and then you got the choke, and there's your progress. So you make these micro analysis and micro goals. So don't try and go, oh, am I getting better because I can tap whoever with whatever? Then that's not going to happen. The micro goals. So some of my guys who are more experienced, when they're rolling with me, if I'm rolling properly, my brown belt's probably not going to tap me, because my brown belts in my academy are a little bit older, and not quite as big as me, maybe. So it's a bit big. The jump is too big to set the goal of, oh, I'm only going to tap my instructor. What I tell them to do is, all right, are you making me go from A to plan B, to plan C, to plan D, to plan E? So what that can mean is they throw up a triangle, or let's say I throw up a triangle. I throw up a triangle and they counter with posture, and I switch to the Jeremy Horn armbar, which I have a video on. Go check it out. It's good. So that was me A to B. All right. And they may think, oh, man, I got tapped. Yeah, you got tapped, but you got tapped a step further down the line. And then the next time we roll and I throw up a triangle, they posture. I go for Jeremy Horn armbar, and they counter this, and I go Jean-Jacques armbar. All right. And then now they go, oh, fuck, man, I still got tapped. You still got tapped, but you made me go 3 steps deep now. All right. And if you don't think of it this way, maybe you don't see that there's progress, but you counted 2 of my things. You made me work harder. All right. I know that was harder for me to get you that time. And what you want to do is you want to keep me going down the line, and then eventually you want to be putting the focus back on attacking me and making me defend, and then make me go harder and harder to defend. So it's micro goals. Don't just think big jumps, right? If I'm going to roll tomorrow with Roger Gracie, it's insane of me to set a goal that I'm going to mount and choke him with a cross collar choke. No, my goal is maybe survive a minute without him passing my guard. And even that might be too big a jump. Do you know what I mean? It might be 30 seconds. It might be 20 seconds. All right. And if I rolled with Roger consistently, I would want to improve in micro stages. So if it was 10 seconds without getting tapped the first time, next time I want it to be 15 seconds, 20 seconds. So make those small jumps. In May 12. May 12. I noticed watching some older Japanese MMA that some of them control the hand for Kimura instead of the wrist. Is that a stronger position if you can get hold of the hand? Yeah, I really like that, actually. So instead of, gripping their hand here, whether it's with a thumb to begin with or without the thumb, I really like to start getting the meat of this flesh. Couple reasons. You're a bit further down the arm. You've got a greater lever. You can bring the wrist lock into play. All right, so we can start attacking the wrist lock along with the Kimura, because remember, the Kimura is going to lock off the tricep, which is going to bring a wrist lock into play. You can see my videos on everything you need to know about wrist locks, the why that's important. And also, it's a really difficult grip to break, and it's very controlling in general for manipulating someone's hand because it brings the wrist into play. All right, cast iron wrist. If I grip here, it's a lot easier for people to rotate and start pulling out of this. But if I grip here, well, now the wrist is in play, and I have to focus on keeping my wrist strong to break that grip. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of that. Huge fan. Shiro, what's my favorite Tito Ortiz quote? It's probably the one where he calls Babalu the best light heavyweight of the evening. But some of his ones with Ken, you know, he just laughs at Ken, and Ken says he's going to beat him into a living death. Let me tell you how you feel, what you saw in the fight tonight, or whatever it was. It's so ridiculously grammatically incorrect that my brain cannot even remember and comprehend what he said. But yeah, gotta love Tito. I think we should have Tito Ken 7 or whatever it is now. Tito and Ken should be like Nightmare on Elm Street. Let's just keep remaking it. It never gets old. Johnny B, what would you like to be better at in grappling? Plus, what do you find difficult to do? Technique, position, whatever. I would like to be better at open guard and general flexibility based stuff, because as I said, I'm ridiculously inflexible through the hips and my guard suffers. It's good, don't get me wrong, but I'm always masking a deficiency in flexibility. So I have to do a lot of movement. I have to do a lot of shrimping type stuff where I try and move to create angles. I can't play stuff flat on my back. And, you know, you see a lot of guys, they'll save positions when they're being passed with, you know, extreme flexibility. I'm not going to name any names, but you've seen it. You've all seen, like, you know, guys do that who are super flexible and they can put their legs behind their head and just laugh at you because how you're going to create a gap at the hip to get past. So that's one of the things I would like to improve. However, I'm realistic. I am lazy as hell when it comes to stretching, and I don't find it interesting at all. And I don't find yoga interesting at all. So it's probably never going to happen. I am limited by my inclinations. I'm not 18 years old, excuse me. I'm not 18 years old, and I'm not going to be a world champion. So the benefit, I mean, I didn't start jiu-jitsu till I was 20, I think. So the benefit of putting the effort in is not going to carry enough reward for me. Having said that, I did want to compete this year in 2020, but I think coronavirus has probably put paid to most of 2020. So we're realistically going to be looking at 2021. And I might also fight MMA as well, just because. So some of you won't know that I actually started because of MMA and not necessarily because of jiu-jitsu, but I always did all of it together. So I'd quite like to fight again. I fought a couple of times back in the day under what was called semi-pro rules MMA. So basically, semi-pro MMA back then was full UFC rules with the tiny gloves, except no striking to the head on the ground. But standing, you could do everything, knees, elbows, etc. On the ground, you could only strike to the body. It was interesting anyway, but I never took it seriously enough. I was more interested in jiu-jitsu. Ian B, what's your football team, chap? I don't really like football, but nominally my football team is Aston Villa because growing up, my dad was mates with the coach Dennis Booth of Aston Villa. So I took along to some games, and I've got an Aston Villa shirt somewhere amongst all this stuff up here, and a signed football. It's in here somewhere. But yeah, football. I used to play a lot of football, and I was quite good. Not to be like a dick and be like, yo, I could have been a pro or anything, but I was pretty good at football. I played at a district level, and I used to do a lot of athletics and things. But football I always liked playing it much more than watching it. Anthony, how long did I train with DLR for? Ever since 2010. So that's 10 years now, on and off. So whenever I go back to Brazil, that's who I would train with. But I was also training luta livre with Milton Vieira. I always used to stop in at BTT as well when I was in Rio. The very first time I went to Rio was 2009, and I actually went to BTT first because, as I said, back then I was training MMA. And where are you going to go train MMA in Rio? You're going to train with BTT. Unfortunately, a lot of the big names by then had already moved on. I wish I'd known about the sport sooner and had gone out sooner. Unfortunately not. Anthony, Gymnastica Natural is the S. Yeah, I quite like it. But it's all about finding the thing that hooks you. All right. There's a lot to be said for the most technically efficient way of learning something is not always the best way of learning something. For example, people always ask me, like, David, you do loads of drilling. By that, they tend to mean like the judo uchikomi style of doing stuff where you'll do like 100 reps of something in very quick succession, and things like that. And I never could do that. Because I don't learn that way very well. Once I get something, I like to do it in sparring drilling rather than limited resistance working over technique. Now, of course, you need a little bit of that to do it, but for me, it's not the best thing, and it would be a waste of my time because I would zone out. And I have one student who is very, 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 very good level purple belt, and he's just a natural. But if I tried to sit down and make him drill something over and over and over again, he'd have quit jiu-jitsu by now. So what can work for some people, I think, I don't want to say for sure, but I think the Meow brothers and guys like that do a lot of that type of drilling. But I guess that they have the mindset for it and the inclination for it. If you've got the inclination to do Gymnastica Natural, but you haven't got the inclination to do boring yoga, well, then one is clearly better for you than the other, So for me, doing an hour of stretching a day would be really, really useful for me. But there's no way I'm going to do an hour of stretching, realistically, because I hate it. And I don't want to do it. And I'm too old to do things that I hate. So, yeah. Cuz the Fuzz. What's the best way to make the most... Oh, I've lost him. What's the best way to make the most out of a video instructional while at home? I assume making notes or something. My good friend Paul McVeigh, who is an MMA fighter, ex-MMA fighter from Glasgow in Scotland, had a post on Facebook about how to make the most out of an instructional. And I suggest you go and read that. So yeah, look for Paul McVeigh from the Dinky Ninjas on Facebook and check out that. Basically, my thing is I tend to watch the entire thing and then I tend to choose a bit. So if it's a system, obviously start at the beginning. Don't start at the end. That's dumb. But if it's a collection of techniques, watch all of them so you have an overview of how they all fit together, and then just pick one. Pick one, work it till you're pretty good at it, move on to the next thing. It's exactly the same way I learn anything. It's exactly the same way I'm learning to play the guitar. I'm choosing a riff, and I'm going to learn that riff. When I learn that riff, I move on to riff number 2 in the song, and then I put them together. Yeah, if you want to make notes, make notes. I've been to seminars and things in the past where I've made notes in a notebook. I did a seminar with Lee Remedios, UFC veteran back in the day, and I still have the notes somewhere. John Kavanagh, who coaches, what's his face, McGregor. I did a seminar with him back in 2005, I think, something like that, 4 or 5, and I still have it. It was arming guillotines. And I remember I showed John how to escape a lockdown, and we talked about, you know, various bits of jiu-jitsu, and I wrote them all down. So yeah, if you like notes, cool. Some people don't like notes. Some people do drawings. I'm not particularly artistic, so whatever you find helps, you know, for you. Some people will use a dictaphone and take verbal notes to, you know, remember cues. Andre Mendoza, training with De La Riva, you must have learned a lot. What were some of the techniques that stood out the most? Obviously, his guard. Yeah, loads of his guard, especially against kneeling opponents. He does a lot of that sort of stuff there. A lot of the guys at his gym kind of pass kind of low like that and go combat base, 1 knee up, 1 knee down. I remember there's been loads of stuff, I'm sure, over the years, but there's 2 things that really stand out to me that he helped me with. One was, I asked him, how can I get my jiu-jitsu better? I think I was a brown belt. And he said, you always just pass to one side. You need to pass to both sides. I think what was happening was I was in a period where I was being very stubborn about, I'm going to make this pass work. And sometimes there's no making that pass work, but by forcing a pass, say, to the left, you open up a different pass to the right. And as soon as I started to take advantage of that switching sides and then switching back and switching back and switching back, my guard passing game suddenly, you know, when it went to a new level, and I made huge advance just off that one little bit of knowledge. The other was, I remember, I think he may have even been in England when I asked him this, and we were doing like shin on shin guard. And I've got long legs. I'm not very flexible in the hip. And I said to him, listen, I'm in a sit-up on the leg position, and I want to go into the shin on shin. But every time I scoot back and I try and put the shin in on the shin, they move too quick, and I can't get it. I'm not flexible enough. And he just said to me, just raise your bum in the air and put the thing in, and then sit back down. And it was just so simple. Like, how would I not thought of that? But you know, when you've been a black belt for almost as long as I've been alive, you know, kind of thing, you've probably learned some stuff. So yeah, there's been a lot of those moments where, you know, you kick yourself. Jiu-jitsu is easy once you know the answer. Shiro, now that you mentioned those doors, what's behind them? The Fritzels. Sid Sidgwick, lots of great training and technique questions. I just wanted to comment on the lovely number plate. Oh yeah, I need to put that on my car again at some point. I used to have it on my Mitsubishi Lancer, and then I crashed it into a fence. So it's not been on a car for a little while. Cheers for that. Appreciate your thoughts, Sam. Yeah, cheers for the question. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming by. Andre, I feel that the Newaza judo shows is not as high level as we see now in the jiu-jitsu world. Do you think training BJJ and wrestling will be better than just training judo or Kozen judo? Depends what you want to do. If you want to do judo, then training jiu-jitsu and wrestling would be silly. If you want to be really good at jiu-jitsu, then training jiu-jitsu would be useful, supplemented with some either wrestling or some judo. Probably not 50-50, unless all you're interested in is grinding out wins in competition by points. But I think like 80% BJJ and then that 20% judo or wrestling is a really nice, You know, one session of wrestling a week, you know, one session of judo a week's really good. But if you want general, train what you want, you know, and train what you enjoy. I can't train judo anymore because the discs in my lower back are so thin that impact after impact after impact kills me. Whereas I can train wrestling now since I've had the back surgery, and I can actually do a good morning and change my back angle. I can wrestle quite hard for quite a long time now, whereas before I couldn't do any of that. So what can you do, and do you enjoy it, and what are your goals? Depends. Nice plate. Should get an Alpina D5. I'd love an Alpina D5. I used to have a BMW M3 E46, but I didn't put the number plate on it. What I should do is sell it to Daniel Strauss for an extremely large amount of money. The reason I have D5 was because back in the day, my username on all of the MMA and Jiu Jitsu forums was David5, so D5. And I always know who knows me from my early days of training if they call me that. Yeah, at some point I'll put it on. I don't know where Ryan Wilkins. I don't know where. No, wait, just Jay. I don't know where you viewers are from, but if you're from America, we only have boring plates. I think in America you can actually spell things properly. Here we have set formats, and it's very difficult to make it actually say something. Otherwise, I'd have like Morsegal or Invisible Jiu-Jitsu or something really cool. Unfortunately, we get stuff like that. Ryan, I'm trying to make some mats to train in my garage. Any suggestions on what sort of foam I should use? Thanks. Post on some Facebook groups, some Jiu-Jitsu Facebook groups, because people are always putting together stuff. And people have done it, you know, loads of times. I remember actually the Gracie Academy had a little video maybe of how they built their green mats in the old academy. And they had like a foam and then carpet and then a vinyl tarpaulin, so they could take up the tarp with Velcro, I think, have functions on the carpet, and then put the tarpaulin back down afterwards. Where I used to train, we had foam, and I think it was just 40 mil closed cell foam. I don't know the densities offhand, but guys who know better than me and can have access to what they've ordered will probably, no doubt, give you an idea. So post on the Facebook groups. Just Jay, what do you think about jiu-jitsu as a street fighting defense martial arts? Love Gracie jiu-jitsu, but some of their knife defense stuff is just dangerous in my opinion. All knife defense stuff is dangerous, and that's why I don't teach any of it. I've seen a lot of the Filipino type stuff, doing disarms against knives, the kind of frenzied knife attack that you're going to see these days, where it's, you know, 30 times you've been stabbed before you even know you're in a knife fight. There's no defense to this sort of stuff. I've often wondered about that kind of thing, like what would you do? Well, first thing is recognizing that you're in a fight that involves a knife. Second is trying to dominate that hand. So my own personal way that I would probably approach this, and all you've got to pray is that you're stronger than the guy, and that your in-fight wrestling is better than his. But you're probably going to get hurt, so don't fight with knives. If you can pick up a weapon and create separation, that's a different story. If I can get a stick in my hand, then, you know, then the Filipino stuff becomes a bit more applicable. But empty hand versus knife, ignore all of it. You're probably going to die. Run away, give him your wallet, whatever. And if you've got a guy who's for some reason trying to kill you with a knife, you need to reevaluate your life choices that's led you to that point. Oh, but in general, for a self-defense kind of art, I think jiu-jitsu is great. However, the last time I was in a fight while working as a doorman, I don't fight in the streets at all, unless it's for work, for security work. But the last time I was in an actual fight, a mass brawl, was all boxing. I don't think I grappled anyone. I punched, and then I threw some kicks. I think I kneed a guy in the head, and I hit a guy with a left hook and dropped him. And then I was looking for the next person. I didn't want to be engaging, multiple people while on the ground. Too dangerous. So I think a bit of judo and a bit of boxing is a really nice little combo for street self-defense. You drop someone on their head, they don't want to fight no more. And jiu-jitsu, obviously, that's kind of my last resort weapon. All right, if I'm 100% certain it's a one-on-one fight, yeah, cool, I'll pull guard. Doesn't matter. I'm confident in my jiu-jitsu that against a guy in the street who's unarmed and on his own, that I could pull mount. It doesn't matter. I'm going to get out. But realistically, it's absolutely the last thing I'm going to do. I'm going to box. I'm going to kickbox. And then we're going to wrestle. Then we're going to do jiu-jitsu, in that order, probably. Shiro, when would you say in regards to mindset when sparring for beginners, like trying specific things they want to work on versus just fighting? All right, let me read that again, but try and make it make sense grammatically on my students, so I can take the mickey out of his writing. When would you say in regards to mindset when sparring? So when do I want to work on things versus just scrapping? Up to you. What am I trying to improve at that given time? If I'm trying to improve a given technique, then I'm going to work that technique. If I'm going to just try and work on my toughness, maybe I'm going to give up some bad positions and just scrap. Again, it comes down for me, unless you want to be the best of the best and you're just a regular dude, then do what makes you happy. If just scrapping makes you happy, cool. If working some stuff makes you happy this week, cool. If it doesn't next week, just scrap again. So play it by ear, take it as it comes. I will tell the story of one of my old training partners from my old gym who got all the way to black belt, and I think he can only do like 4 things. His mindset was always very closed. He didn't want to lose in sparring. And he was always a tough guy. Maybe I'd tap him 2 or 3 times in a round, or whatever, when maybe someone else I'd tap, 5 times, or I'd tap them 3 and they tap me 3. He would never tap me, and he would limit my taps on him. But it was always in control, and it was always very boring. Nothing happened. Being a turtle for like 20 minutes or something. In that 20 minutes, maybe I'd get him twice, but there was no way he was ever going to get me. His game had gone too closed. And I think that's a danger. So don't let your game get too closed. Sometimes just scrap, sometimes work some stuff, sometimes work on what you already know and learn that toughness, so they all play their part at different times, finding the right ratios. I can't tell you. You need to figure that out yourself. Andre, also, why do you think we don't see Japanese judo guys versus BJJ guys, something akin to Kimura versus Gracie? I think it's because the Olympic Judo Committee doesn't allow their athletes to do any sport outside of jiu-jitsu. I know a lot of them, I think a lot of them in France in particular were getting in trouble for cross-training in MMA and various things. And yeah, I think when you're a high-level judo athlete who's going to compete on the top stage in judo, you're getting paid by your country's governing body, sporting body, and the International Judo Federation, whatever they are. Is it the IJF? Whoever. They're going to have a say in what you can and can't do if you want that money. And if you want to compete in their competitions, you have to play by their rules. So unfortunately, we're not going to see any current high-level judoka taking part in jiu-jitsu, doing super fights and things, and until they retire. So I think we had who was the heavyweight judoka that fought in quintet and things? Was it Satoshi? I think he's retired from judo, right? Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But I think he's retired, so now he can do some jiu-jitsu instructionals and judo for jiu-jitsu, and he can do some competitions like quintet without fear of being penalized, in his own sport by his governing bodies. So yeah, but I'd love to see it more, because it's always really interesting to watch a jiu-jitsu guy get dropped on his head and then hopefully come back and win. Because I'm a jiu-jitsu mark. Tips for smaller guys training with heavier guys. I can't read your username. As you can see, I am, of course, a smaller guy, so this is something I hold very dear to my heart. First tip is be careful. So in my academy, I match up the roles, so to make sure everyone gets a safe role, a varied role. They get hard roles, they get easy roles where they can work some stuff, they get challenging roles, different body types, body sizes. But obviously, you've got to be careful. If you're 30 kilo and incredibly weak, 65 pounds, and you're going to roll with someone who's 150 kilos, 330 pounds, then that's just asking for trouble, especially if they're both beginners. So first of all, safety. Don't do anything stupid. Don't, put yourself into compromised positions, especially when you're dealing with weight. Treat your focus and your goal setting appropriately. So if I'm rolling with someone who's matched with me equally in technique, but they weigh, double my weight, well, I'm probably not expecting to go tap for tap with them or whatever. I'm expecting to set my goals appropriately. Maybe one day I'm just going to work on survival. I remember last time I was in Brazil, I trained with a guy called Bruno who was like 150 kilos. I think this was back when we were both brown belts, and it was always fairly even, but holy crap, I did not want to let him pass my guard. If he got to side control, it was ridiculous. So set your goals wise, stay safe, work on getting to the back. Channel your inner Marcelo Garcia. Go to the back, stay safe. Don't play close guard. Open up your guard nice and early. Set some positions. Try and sweep. Try and get up on top. Try and go to the back. Absolute classic jiu-jitsu. Classic jiu-jitsu was invented for small guy rolling with heavier guy. So that's my goal. And it's applicable. No matter who I'm rolling with really and what the size is. If I can go to the back, I'm probably in a good spot. Certain positions make more sense. Mount, if you're very small against someone really heavy, doesn't always make sense. Sometimes you're very easy to roll off. Perfect example of like big guy versus small guys, Marcelo versus Rico Rodriguez at ADCC when he got slammed on his back. Oh yeah, and attack the legs of bigger guys because their ankles are weak. Matt Urin, what advice would you have for white belts beyond shut up and train and general mat time experience? Shut up and train. But also what would I give general a white belt experience? Gambate, the Japanese principle of keep on fighting, don't give up. Really, don't give up is just the crucial key for white belts. You're going to suffer so many, as I mentioned earlier in the stream, you're going to suffer so many setbacks over the years it takes you to get to black belt that eventually you're either going to quit or you're going to make it. And it's the ones with the fortitude to get through everything, that are going to make it. Like this whole lockdown thing and gyms being closed for a month or two, it's very, very easy to go, well, I'm not going to come back to jiu-jitsu anymore. And the amount of people that I know, their reason for not coming back to jiu-jitsu after a period of layoff is that the people that they used to tap now, they won't be able to tap anymore. And the people that they used to beat, they won't be able to beat anymore. And then the ego comes in and you're like, I don't want to have to take a step back to then join back when I was here before. Well, yeah, that happens. You got to suck it up and you got to get on it. You'll get back to where you were eventually. You got to put more work in. And unfortunately, jiu-jitsu's, despite what Gracie Barra say, jiu-jitsu's not for everyone. It's available to everyone, but it's not for everyone. It takes a very special in the head person to kind of persevere through all the crap to get to the really good stuff at the end. Ian B, you've got the face of an MMA fighter. Back when I used to have my head shaved, in Brazil, they used to think I looked like Mike Bisping, who was a friend of mine at the time. So that was always kind of funny. So yeah, I used to get that in Brazil fairly often. Oh, Mike Bisping. But I don't really have any cauliflowers. I still have a fairly straight nose. John Hand, what do you think you would be doing if there was no such thing as martial arts? Good question. I would probably still be doing sport. Like I was saying earlier, I used to play a lot of football. Injuries stopped my football career, but I actually carried on playing cricket to a decent level for quite a while after that. So I might still be playing cricket, to be honest, which is a very English sport. It's a bit like baseball for you Americans, but better. And it lasts longer. The longest of the cricket games lasts for 5 days. So those of you who think baseball is a long sport, you don't know anything about sport. I also have a degree in chemistry, so I'd probably be working in a lab somewhere and absolutely hating my life. Very quickly after my chemistry degree, I realized after working in a brewery for a little bit that I didn't want to work in a lab at all. I just wanted to do MMA and jiu-jitsu. And I like being my own boss. So taking orders is not something that I'm particularly interested in. Yeah. So probably some other sport, I think, and most likely cricket. I would have really liked to have got into lifting a lot sooner than I did. So I've only been lifting for a few years on and off around various injuries. I got heel hooked at Naga a couple of years ago, which put me back a little bit. And I'm completely natural. So injuries take a lot longer to heal, unfortunately. Well, I'm getting old now, so maybe I should just jump on the juice and make a run at the Worlds. Anthony Harding, once the coronavirus is over, do you think jiu-jitsu will be the same as it was before? Not for a while. I think realistically, people will, this is going to hang around for a little while, and people are going to be very picky on what they do, which is worrying for me, obviously, as a business owner in the jiu-jitsu field. So somehow we've got to get people back into the sport at the levels that we were at before as soon as we can. But I think, especially the British way of thinking about things is like keep calm and carry on sort of thing. And I don't think our lockdown is going to last very much longer before the country's just like, all right, we've got to get on with it now. We've got to get on with life. I don't think they're going to accept a year of house arrest. It's not going to happen. And I think America's fairly similar. They like their liberties and freedoms, and they don't appreciate them being taken away. So I think realistically, we're going to have a period of shutdown, and then we're going to have to open back up for economic reasons before we would open back up for safety reasons. I mean, we could eradicate coronavirus by closing everything for 2 years, but realistically, that's not going to happen, and we're not going to have much of a country to come back to if we did that. Michael Plevin. What do you think of how to get underhooks when people refuse to give them using defensive positions such as Preet's methods, and the way we aren't taught how to get them during technique demos? Yeah, it's a really good question. And if someone is really good at defending the underhooks, it can be a huge battle to get them. Obviously, I've been fortunate enough to roll with Preet quite a few times, so I've found quite a few ways to get around it. Maybe one day I'll do an instructional on smashing the turtle. But in general, jiu-jitsu and this position is true of every position in jiu-jitsu, is you can't close all the doors. There's no way. If there was an ultimate defense, then I'd just teach you that on day one, and then away you go. I'd never have to see you again. Unfortunately, jiu-jitsu is not like that. Or fortunately, because that's what makes it interesting. So things we can do. I can't get the underhook. Yeah, no problem. I'm going to go after your face. And a lot of this stuff, this defensive stuff, it gives opportunities, especially if you're not worried about hurting your opponent. So in competition, not in training, don't deliberately try and hurt someone in training, but in competition, I start to go after neck cranks a lot in these positions where they're defending very low, because I can stop the underhook, but this then becomes a lot more difficult to defend up here. If they're defending up here, it starts to become a lot easier to take the underhook. If I want the underhook and they close all their self off in turtle, then they lose base side to side. So there's always a compromise, right? You can never stop everything all at once. You can only stop certain things at a time. And the one problem, and all of this is really good, you need to learn how to defend yourself in turtle, okay? So I advise everyone, learn how to deal with safety in turtle. My idea, though, and my philosophy in the position is that you shouldn't be hanging out in these positions. And the reason I say that is I consider that they're bad positions. Don't listen to this Eduardo Tellez. I don't buy it. There's one Eduardo Tellez, and that's it. So these are bad positions. And the analogy that I make is leaving a thief alone with a safe. If you give that thief 10 seconds to crack a really tough safe, he's not going to crack the safe. All right. But if you leave that thief alone with that safe for a day, well, maybe he's getting into it. All right. And the longer you leave yourself exposed in these bad positions without transitioning back into an attack, the longer you're leaving the thief with the safe. He's going to pick that lock. And that's been the case every time I've rolled with people who are ultra defensive. Yeah, you might stop me for a little while, but if you're not doing anything back to me, then eventually I'm going to crack your shell. Yeah, eventually I'm going to get in and I'm going to choke you out. And for me, jiu-jitsu is all about the submission. Okay, it's all about dominating position. It's all about getting the submission. And if we're not playing the submission game and we're just playing who's the best at not getting tapped, we're not doing jiu-jitsu. Right? Now, you need to know how not to get tapped. Now, don't get me wrong, like someone like Roger, if we start in turtle, I'm not going to tap Roger. But you can winning them. Yeah, you're going to spend time in these positions because you're feeling them out, you're getting the hang of them. But recognize that that's not the end goal of those positions. The end goal is to use them to be safe and then to transition into attacking positions and finish your opponent. Tez, any zombies round my way? Not yet, but I have machetes and throwing axes just in case. Oh yeah, that's another hobby that I've kind of getting into at the moment. Is I've bought some throwing axes, some cold steel throwing axes. So I just need to make some targets, and I'm going to be in the garden throwing some axes at stuff. CV, that's Batman. I assume you're talking about the chair. Yes. Well, obviously my nickname being Morsegal, being Big Bat, I had to get the Batman chair. Shiro, you had a Lancer. I did. I had a Lancer Evolution 9 FQ 340 tuned to about 400 horsepower at the wheels. Thanks for answering the questions. Yeah, you're welcome, Andre. Thanks for coming by, man. Case. Who needs knives when you have heel hooks? Well, to be fair, I mean, probably if you're heel hooking someone, they can probably only stab you in the legs, and if you heel hook them hard enough, maybe they drop the knife. I don't recommend anyone try that for real. A good thing, going back to the whole knife defense thing, I don't know if any of you have ever done it, but get a marker pen and put it in your child's hands, and then try and take the pen away from them while they're trying to paint you with it. Wear a white t-shirt and you'll surprise yourself. Obviously, don't drill your kids in the face. We're not going too crazy. Let's see. Shiro, right, I meant what, not when. What? I don't understand what you meant, Shiro. Just Jay, really appreciate the time. Get the kids. Cheers, man. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll do some more. So I'll do these fairly regularly if you guys want to tune in. There's still people watching. I can see the numbers. So yeah, thanks. Leave a like and subscribe, and you'll get the notification on when we do the next one. John Hand, I totally agree with BJing for everyone. Yeah, it's not. Who's the youngest black belt in the UK? I don't know at the moment. I think Ashley Williams was definitely in the running at one time. There's so many black belts here now. It's kind of took off in the last year or two. I don't really know. And there was also a guy from Roger Gracie whose name I can't remember. But he's immensely strong, very, very strong powerlifter, and also a BJJ black belt under Roger Gracie. And he's fairly young as well. I'll kick myself when I remember his name. Cheers, Ryan. Thanks for watching, man. Yeah, Andre, smashing turtle instructional. One day I'll do smashing turtle, smashing panda. And stuff. And the good thing is whenever these things are made, the jiu-jitsu evolves. A counter comes, and then the guy who had that comes back with another thing, and then we come back, and jiu-jitsu gets better all around. So it'll last for a little while, and then counters will exist, counters will come. But the good positions will always trump bad positions, all else being equal. John Han, who's your favorite superhero and what superpower would you choose to have? My favorite superhero is Thor, and somewhere in these boxes are some CGC boxed grade 9 issues of Thor. What's not to like? He can, and he's really underpowered in the Marvel universe. So don't get this twisted that I'm talking about Marvel universe, cinematic universe Thor. I'm talking about Marvel Comics Thor, who can do anything, has magic, is really strong. Not Captain, what's her face? Captain Marvel. Thor should be above Captain Marvel in power stakes. But, you know, that's not how it worked out in the movies. Brilliant answer to question about underhooks. Thank you. Really interested. Really interesting way to approach them. Can people just come to your gym as one-off sessions? Yeah, Michael. Yeah, anyone can come to my gym. Stop in. We are part of a 24-hour gym that has coded access. So if you do want to come down, give me a shout on Facebook or via my website, which is invisiblejiujitsu.co.uk. And yeah, you're more than welcome. We accept everyone from any team, even Gracie Baja. Matthew Uren, what was the experience of living in Brazil like versus living in the UK? Oh, and also we're just approaching the hour-and-a-half mark now, and my camera's starting to run down in battery. I don't have an AC adapter yet, so I'm probably going to finish off in the next few minutes. So if you've got some questions, last questions, leave them down below. And if we don't cover it this time, I'm sorry. Come back the next time and we'll try. Weather's better if you're a single person. You've got a nice beach in Rio. Depends where you go in Brazil. When I talk about Brazil, I'm talking about Rio because I haven't been to other places in Brazil. São Paulo is very different place. You know, Recife in the northeast is a very different place. They're all different places, but in general, the training is going to be generally very good in Rio, especially. You're probably going to have a number of black belts beyond the mat at any one point. You're going to have a number of higher grades, and you're probably not going to have many white belts, depending on the gym that you go to. I call it I think about like the triangle of belts. So in an average school in the UK, you're going to have a lot of white belts be your base of your pyramid. And then you're going to have some blues on top of that, some purples, some browns. And then maybe you have the one black belt at the top of the triangle, top of the pyramid. That's your head coach, maybe. You know, maybe you don't even have a brown belt in some places in the UK still. Whereas in Brazil, you're going to go somewhere and that triangle is going to be this way around. And you'll have like a couple white belts, a few more blues, purples, browns, and blacks. So I've definitely been to classes in Rio that have had more black belts on the mat than anything else. And I was very fortunate. It brought my game on very quickly because I was able to train with some heavy second, third, fourth degree black belts right from the time I was a blue belt, and get my ass kicked and learn really fast. So that's one of the big ones. It's a lot easier to eat healthily in Brazil, I found, than it is in England. Junk food's not quite there, as readily available. You can get nice juice places in Brazil. So healthy eating is really good. Andre Mendoza, I know some people who allow heel hooks when rolling no gi, but absolutely not when rolling in the gi. I assume it's because IBJJF rules. Is it everything that goes regardless of gi? So at my gym, my mouth's getting dry now. At my gym, in the gi classes, we roll to IBJJF rules. Gi classes, we roll to everything goes except heel hooks, unless you ask and I allow it. So again, I'm matching up the rolls, and if I match up two guys and they're experienced and they want to roll with heel hooks, then they just say, hey, can we roll with heel hooks? And I say yes or no. Ultimately, the safety of the the gym is my responsibility. But after a little bit of training, you know, you're not an absolute rank beginner. Heel hooks can be trained very safely. I don't think they need to be feared. I've seen much worse injuries from Kimuras than I have heel hooks, you know, in general training. So that's how I do it. In Brazil, back when I'm at my Luta Livre gym, it's anything goes. And it's full finish too. It's not catch and release stuff. It's I get a heel hook and I try and finish it, and you either tap out or you get out. Obviously not gonna break your leg, but I'm trying to finish it. So not quite competition or full competition intensity, but fairly close. Yeah, cheers, Michael. Stop in any time. Tom McAlpine, as a lanky guy, I prefer close guard to half guard without a knee shield because I find underhooks hard because of my long arms. Any tips or types of bottom half guard for lankier guys? Z guard with an overhook. So play Z guard and get an overhook instead of an underhook, and really stretch them out. If you're not playing like with so if you're playing in the gi, you can take collar sleeve, and again you can really stretch them out. I do that a lot, Z guard, and it's really, really uncomfortable. If you get that point of your knee just nicely in the hip, it's really, really bad for them. Okay, so we'll make this the last question then, and then we'll sign off, and we'll come back another time. We'll see how the battery is going. I don't want the camera to turn off. Hopefully. Andre, do you play any of the more modern lapel guards like worm guard or squid, and your stance on them? Are they too sport, or do you think learning new developments will just make jiu-jitsu better? I got nothing against them. I think it comes down to mindset again. If you're playing Galaxy Guard and you're just using it to stall for 20 minutes, then you suck, not the guard. If you're playing Worm Guard and you're attacking straight off the bat and you're using it to sweep and get up on top, then, you know, fantastic. And again, it all comes down to what you want to get from jiu-jitsu. If you're really deep in, you know, you want to get deep into the sport, you got to learn that stuff, and you got to learn how to counter it if you don't want to learn how to apply it. If you're really interested in self-defense, then worm and most modern guards are probably not going to be your focus. So yeah, I got nothing against it. I don't play a hell of a lot. I do a little bit. I kind of like games that cross over nicely between gi and no gi. But, you know, I play Spider and things and stuff that doesn't work in no gi and only works in the gi. Again, if you enjoy it, cool. Who am I to judge? Jiu-jitsu's, I don't have a monopoly on what jiu-jitsu is, and neither does anyone else, you know. So anyone who tells you have to learn squid guard, don't believe them. Anyone that tells you that you shouldn't learn it, don't believe them. Do what the hell you like. All right, so thank you very much, everyone, for tuning into the live stream. I'm going to go cook some steak, some quarantine steak, and maybe we'll come back in the week and we'll do another one of these. I've got some plans. Hopefully my laptop can handle it, that I'm going to stream via OBS, and I've got a lot of sparring footage. Some sparring footage of me with my students, some with me from Globetrotters camps and things. And I might try and do some kind of narrated rolling, what I was thinking about at the time, if my laptop can handle it. So we'll see. We'll see. If it can handle it, fantastic. Again, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube, and there'll be a notification whenever I decide to do the next one of these. So thanks a lot. We'll see you again.